we can start now. So this is, bakit ayaw niya? Okay. So what is a law? So from start is we have to define what is a law. So law is a body of rules of action or conduct prescribed by controlling authority and having binding legal force. So other definition like the Black Law Dictionary, it is a solemn expression of the will of the supreme power of the government. But according to Justice Bradley, that it is a science of principle by which civil society is regulated and held together, by which right is enforced and wrong is detected and punished. It is the rule of conduct, just, obligatory, promulgated by legitimate authority and common observance and benefits. So, so matota, it is a system of rules created and enforced through social and governmental institutions to regulate behavior. So laws are classified into two according to the author of this book. It is non-jural law and adjural law. So non-jural law are these following: the divine law, natural law, moral law, and physical law. So anong ibig sabihin ng divine law dito? It is a comprised any body of law that is perceived as deriving from the transcendent source, such as the will of God. In contrast, the man-made law, which sometimes they call it a secular law. Natural law, ito yung is a system of law based on close observation of human nature and based on values intrinsic to human nature that can be deduced and applied independent of the positive law. So according to natural law theory, all people have inherent rights conferred not by act of legislation but by God, nature, or reasons. Moral law is divided, actually it's referred to either the moral absolutism. Ibig sabihin nito, this is an ethical view that particular action are intrinsically right or wrong. For example, stealing might be considered immoral, but if you do it parang Robin Hood style, like stealing and feeding to a starving family, so it becomes good. So the other example of moral law is the Ten Commandments in Christianity. Physical law is also referred to scientific law or laws of science. These are statements based on repeated experiment or observation that describe or predict a range of natural phenomena. Get pala. Jural law, no, these are the constitutional enactment statutes enacted by legislature, executive orders and decrees, judicial precedents, opinion of juries, city municipal ordinance, rules and regulations. So, ang ibig sabihin ng jural, it is relating to rights and obligations. So, enacted by the people. So, the usual, well-known of these laws are the civil and laws, code of the civil law and the criminal law, no? These are the following differentiation. What is a civil? Fine. The personal compensation or some restraining order. So compared to criminal, this is now government versus private dependent. So people of the republic versus proof, ibig sabihin, a reasonable doubt, ibig sabihin, you have to be proven. Now, the evidence all pointed to you. So, reasonable doubt. Ibig sabihin na ikaw talaga ang gumawa ng crime. So, these are example are murder, burglary. So, usually incarceration, ibig sabihin, imprisonment dito. Some are fines, and so some are restraining order and injunction. So, in the Philippines, the Civil Code of the Philippines, which is enacted in 1950, no? And the criminal, or we can say the revised penal code is enacted 1930s and revised by the Republic Act 38115. So some of the what is written in the penal code are yun lang siya, pero may mga Republic Acts also yung wala na sa revised penal code nakalagay, so they create it to make it into law into Republic Act. Let's define what is legal medicine. So ito yung things na kailangan natin malaman, no? Is a branch of medicines that applies medical and surgical concept, scientific knowledge and skills to medical legal issues. So assist the theological in the proper dispensation of justice. So as we can say, no, legal medicine focus more on medical legal issues. And the medical jurisprudence is the study of medical law and its applicable jurisprudence that governs, regulates, and defines the practice of medicine. So for practice of medicine, your medical jurisprudence is ang book na ang reference we are looking at. Like mga practices na kailangan ba, tama ba ang doktor or anong rights ng patients are part of the medical jurisprudence. So the Family Code of the Philippines was enacted or issued by President Corazon Aquino under Executive Order 209, which took effect on August 3 of 1988. No? So it applies to all Filipino citizens, whether domestic or in abroad. So the basic law is covering the person and public relations, which govern marriages, legal separation, property relation between spouses, and parental authority, among others. Yun ang purpose ng Family Code of the Philippines. So these are not some definitions of the Family Code, no? So what is the person? So ibig sabihin, anong person they pertain in a legal matter. So it is any being, whether natural or juridical, capable of carrying legal rights and carrying obligations. So there are two types of person down, no? The natural and the juridical. So natural is the human being created by God through intervention of parents. Yun yung definition niya. And juridical, it is the state and its political subdivision, corporations, associations, and so and so. So a juridical person, no, may acquire and possess property of all kinds as we incur obligation and bring civil and criminal action in conformity with the laws and regulation of the organization. No? Juridical person, however, being a creature of law, cannot be subject to criminal prosecution because they cannot be the subject of an arrest warrant like the natural person. So you have to specify who in this corporation or in the government agencies or any associations are responsible for that. So you have to name. So for a person to be able to enter contract and to sue and be sued in court, he must possess a juridical capacity and the capacity to act aside from attainment of legal personality. So juridical capacity will be defined later, no? So the next definition is the age of majority. So what is a minor? Natin, no? So it's, a minor is less than 18 years old. So this act was done by the Republic Act 6909, decreasing the age of majority to 18. So previously it was 21. Then we have to define what is emancipation. So emancipation refers to the condition or relationship between parties and their minor children, whereby the parents or guardian are relieved of divested of parental authority. So kung lampas ka na ng 18, ang tawag doon is emancipations. So, ito pala, no? Emancipation, no, can occur if you're legally married, you're financially independent, your parents are abusive, neglectful, and unreasonable to you, you have moral objection to your parents' living situation, and you've been kicked out of your house. So, according to the law, no, emancipations take place by attaining of age of majority, so yung 18 years old. So, except, no, if you are married less than 18, your age of yung parang consent pa rin galing sa parents until your age 21. So iba yung sa marriage as age of majority. So parental consent is still applied until age 21 of the individual that is married. So emancipation, no, shall terminate parental authority over the person, property of the child, who shall then be qualified and responsible for all acts of civil life, save the exception established by existing law and special. So dito nakalagay, no, contracting marriage shall require parental consent until the age of 21. So yung juridical capacity, no, is the fitness to be subject to legal relations, while capacity to act is defined as the power to do act with legal effect. So in general, it's an inherent in every person and is lost upon death. So capacity to act is acquired and may be lost. So these are the restricted juridical capacity, no? So all of these take effect. Parents has the utmost control over this following, like the minors, the insane, the imbecile, the deaf mutes, prodigals, and suffering from civil interjection. So prodigals, this is where person who full of at the full of age were incapable of managing their affairs and of the obligation which attended them. And those who suffering from civil interdiction, this is a legal restraint upon a person incapable of managing his estate because of mental incapacity. So parents of this person are still liable for obligation and liabilities incurred by them, and their contractual acts entered by them during the period of their incapacity may be validated and ratified by their parents to cleanse them of their defects and thereby converting voidable contract into valid ones. So another one is another definition is what is a residence. No, it implies the factual relation of an individual to uncertain place. So the other definition naman is domicile. So domicile is the place a person intend to be remain. So what is the difference between residence and the domicile? Residence is temporary and domicile is the permanent. So ang reason of this is it is important to lay down the fundamental distinction between domicile residence in determining the proper venue for the purpose of filing a civil suit in court. So, self-explanatory, saan isi-send yung litigation paper. So we also define what is a plaintiff and a defendant. No, a plaintiff is the one who initiates the lawsuit for a court, and defendant is a person accused of committing a crime in criminal prosecution or a person against whom some type of civil relief is being sought in a civil case. So next definition is what is marriage according to the family code is a special contract of permanent union between a man and a woman entered into in accordance with law for the establishment of conjugal and family life. So there are some other marriages like the incestuous marriages refers to marriage between close blood relative, between ascendants and descendants of any degree, and between brothers and sisters, whether of full or half blood. Void marriages is a marriage which is not valid from the time of inception or commencement of this marriage. So a marriage from the very beginning is void. So these are the following marriages shall be void from the beginning of reasons of public policy. So between collateral blood relatives, whether legitimate or illegitimate, but up to the fourth civil degree. Between step-parents and step-children, between parents-in-law and children-in-law, between the adopting parents and adopted child, between surviving spouses of adopting parents and the adopted child. Dalawa hot and cold. Between the surviving spouse and the adopted child, and adopter between adopted child and legitimate child of the adopter, between adopted children of the same adopter, and between parties where one with the intention to marry the other killed that other person's spouse or his or her own spouse. Voidable marriage, no, valid until it is annulled. No, it can be a sale, collateral in process of proceedings. So in short, voidable is sa Tagalog may visa hangga't hindi mapawalang saysay at maaring magpawalang saysay. So it is the court will decide it is voidable. So one of these, it's one of the voidable are like non-age, fraud, duress, intimidation, and undue influence. So pwede siya maging voidable marriages. Sometimes we talk about for annulment and divorce and legal separation, they always cited psychological incapacity. So it's a ground for annulment of marriage. So ibig sabihin is incapable of fulfilling their essential marital obligation, which is to procreate children or by senseless or protracted or refusal to have sexual intercourse with their spouse, as in case of sexual closet or impotent. Sexual closet, ang ibig sabihin ko dito is homosexuality. And there are also some marriage of exceptional character. No, these are marriage the moment of death or at the point of death. So they want to get married between contracting parties who have no time to secure a marriage license, or when either both contracting parties reside in a place where there is no means of transportation, and kung wala ring local civil registrar, or marriage with among Muslim group or ethnic cultural communities, or between men and women who had lived already as husband and wife for at least 5 years. No, this marriage does not require production of marriage license for their validity. And you're asking me, what is patria potestas? This is in short, is a parental authority. No? The right of parents or guardians, which they exercise over their minor children, the care and supervision. So Ang jurisdiction, no, it also depends on the court, no? So there's one cited cases where the grandparents take care of the grandchildren, the granddaughter. So the father filed for patria potestas. So according to the rule of the court over that cases, the father was given the parental authority by the court. So it is still the court will decide kung if the daughter interest is more important than the parental authority. So if the father cannot give what the normal father cannot give the what is the need of the child, so probably he will lose this parental authority. So according to the Article 313, no, the parental authority cannot be renounced or transferred except in case of guardianship or adoption approved by the courts or the emancipation of the concession. There are also some substitutes of special parental authority. No, this is referred to the right and corresponding duty of surviving grandparents, eldest brother or sister, school, entity or institution teaching child care, teacher, school administrator, health, children's homes, and orphanage. In the absence of judicial guardian for cares of supervision and custody of a minor. And they become the loco parentis or parental authority exercised by person on whom the law entrusts for the care, supervision, and custody of an emancipated minor child in the absence or behalf of parents by nature or by legal fiction. So let's go back to marriage again. What is the meaning of donation propter nuptias? It's referred to the donation whether of immovable or immovable property made by one contracting party in favor of another before the celebration of marriage by reason of or in consideration of such marriage. These are if the marriage is not celebrated or judicially declared void upon judicial except donation made in the marriage settlement. When the marriage takes place without the consent of the parents or guardians as required by law, when the marriage is annulled and the donee acted in bad faith upon legal separation, the donee being the guilty spouse. If it's in resolution, conditions, and complied with when donee has committed an act of ingratitude specified by the provision. So usually this is a 1/5 of the couple's wealth. So donations by reasons of marriage. And lastly, that we will call an antenuptial agreement, which is the prenup agreement. So it's an agreement in writing intended to govern the properties in relation between husband and wife made before the celebration of marriage, whether the party relation to regime or absolute community, conjugal partnership, or complete separation of property to take effect at the same time of celebration of marriage. So these are absolute community, conjugal partnership, complete separation of property, and the dowry system where the wife will bring in property to help the husband in supporting the family. To condition at the end of the marriage, the property or its value shall be returned. So absolute community, so ibig sabihin, so, hindi sa couple property. So, okay. So I presented this legal terms. So before we tackle the larger picture, being a family physician should also know what are the family code of the Philippines that we can also advise or we can also know what are the limitation of a physician and what we can advise to our family. So legal medicine only pertain to medical legal issues, and the medical jurisprudence will also pertain to our medical practice. So all of these three legal principles are important as a medical practitioner. So if you have a question that I can answer, because I'm not an expert in laws, I am just some knowledge during of that kind. So do you have any questions or clarifications?
Doc Kim, good morning.
Oh, good morning.
Doc, pwede pa hingin ng slides. Doc, apart from the slides, Doc, baka pwede i-share mo din sa amin. Kasi mahirap intindihin, Doc. Siyempre,
Definition
ano
of
yan
terms.
doktor, tapos lawyer, iba talaga.
So isend ko lang yung script.
Doc Kim, anong prodigal?
Prodigal? Wait lang, nalimutan ko na.
Sa Bible,
Yung mga
bumalik, suwail na bumalik.
Ba yun?
hindi, yung di maroon, yung wait lang. Yung mga incapable of managing their affairs, parehas ni Britney Spears.
Okay, Doc, thank you.
So i-share, isend ko na lang siguro sa messenger yung script. So okay, no? Okay. We have, if there is no questions, siguro we can call up the day. Okay, thank you for attending this short.
Thank you.
Okay. See you later.